QuitSmokingWeed.com, the podcast on Spotify.
You know, you are lying awake right now. It is probably 2 a.m. and your jaw is clenched so tight it physically aches. Your legs feel like they have, well, a live electric current running through them. And you are a few days or maybe a few weeks off weed.
And in a moment of sheer frustration earlier today, you probably went online and bought one of those $50 cannabis detox bundles. I mean, the wellness industry is exceptionally good at targeting the desperation of someone who has not slept properly in a week.
So now you're staring at the ceiling wondering if you just wasted $50. If you look at the back of the bottle, you will see almost every single one of those detox bundles relies heavily on one specific ingredient. They all use magnesium.
The massive problem with the supplement industry is that they use the cheapest possible version of that ingredient to maximize their profit margins. So people take these heavy detox stacks and they feel absolutely zero relief for their symptoms. Then they just write the whole concept off as a complete scam.
The frustrating truth here is that magnesium is one of the very few things in those bundles that genuinely does something. It actually works. But it only works if you get the chemical form right and the number of milligrams right.
Well, most people get both of those variables wrong. They feel nothing and falsely conclude the mineral is useless. Our goal today is to strip away all that marketing noise. We are going to break down the biochemical reality of what this mineral does for the four main symptoms that make the early weeks off weed so incredibly miserable.
We will detail which chemical form you actually need and which one you should walk right past in the pharmacy aisle. We also need to look at the exact amounts required and where the supplement marketing completely oversells its capabilities.
The reason magnesium is so critical during this specific window of quitting comes down to raw physiology. It is involved in, hundreds of enzymatic reactions in the human body. But the one we care about most right now is its role in regulating GABA.
Let us define what GABA actually is, because the brain basically operates on a two-pedal system. You have glutamate, which acts as the gas pedal, that keeps you alert and awake and focused.
Then you have GABA, that stands for gamma-aminobutyric acid. GABA is the brake pedal. It is the primary inhibitory neurotransmitter that literally tells your neurons to stop firing so fast. It is the chemical signal that produces a state of calm.
Magnesium is the mineral that binds to and stimulates those GABA receptors. When GABA activity runs low, your brake pedal stops working. The engine just keeps revving.
The gas pedal is pinned to the floor. The result is soaring anxiety and physical restlessness, and a total inability to cross the threshold into sleep, which sounds exactly like the first weeks of cannabis withdrawal.
I mean, the nervous system is stuck in a nasty excitatory loop. This is not some random vitamin that was designed for general health and awkwardly shoehorned into a detox program. The biological mechanism of magnesium and the withdrawal symptom list overlap perfectly.
There is a cruel irony to the timeline here, though. The exact moment you need magnesium the most is usually the exact moment your bodily levels are at their absolute lowest. You're looking at a state of double whammy depletion.
Wait, I get that regular long-term cannabis use pulls magnesium levels down over time. The constant metabolic processing of cannabinoids takes a toll on your mineral stores.
Yeah.
But why are you losing it faster exactly when you quit? I would think it starts recovering the second you stop.
You would logically think your levels should start recovering. But withdrawal itself is a highly stressful physiological state. When you abruptly stop using THC, your brain perceives the sudden loss of homeostasis as a threat.
It dumps cortisol and adrenaline into your bloodstream. This fight-or-flight state changes how your organs function, right? Your kidneys start hoarding sodium to keep your blood pressure up for a potential physical fight.
And in exchange, they literally flush magnesium out through your urine. So, the demand for the mineral goes through the roof to try to calm the nervous system down, just as the supply is rapidly draining out of your body.
You are slamming your foot on the brake pedal, but there is no brake fluid left in the lines. The kidneys sacrifice magnesium to maintain an emergency state.
Exactly. You are not experiencing a deficiency just because you quit weed. You are feeling the extreme physical friction of trying to regulate an overactive nervous system without the necessary biological building blocks.
Before we go any further into the physiology, we have to establish a hard medical boundary right here. Since the kidneys act as the bouncers of the club, filtering and flushing out magnesium, we need to address kidney disease.
Yes, that is vital. If your kidneys are impaired, they cannot clear excess magnesium from the blood effectively. The mineral can build up to dangerous, toxic levels in your system, Anyone with kidney problems absolutely must get medical clearance from a doctor before taking a magnesium supplement.
You do not want to mess with renal failure. Assuming healthy kidneys, we need to set a firm baseline on expectations. The wellness industry loves to frame supplements as magic cures.
Magnesium is definitely not a magic cure.
I remember looking at those supplement labels early on in my own experience and taking a dose. I fully expected a sleeping pill effect. I thought I would get drowsy 20 minutes later and pass out. I felt completely lost when I was still wide awake an hour later.
That is a fundamental misunderstanding of what minerals actually do in the body. A heavy pharmaceutical sedative forces your brain into an unconscious state. It shuts the system down chemically.
Magnesium restores a regulator. It does not replace one. It simply provides the raw material your nervous system needs to quiet itself down naturally. It will never knock you out.
Let's get concrete about what it actually covers, starting with that wired humming anxiety. The nervous system is trapped in that excitatory state, constantly scanning for threats that do not exist.
How does magnesium actually turn down the volume on that panic?
By supporting that GABA function we talked about, it helps the nervous system slowly shift toward the calmer state it is struggling to reach. It does not eliminate psychological cravings for weed, but it dampens the constant physical vibration of anxiety that sits in the background of your day.
Then there's the physical side, specifically muscle tension. This directly addresses the physical restlessness. I'm talking about the restless legs that strike the moment you get into bed.
If GABA handles the brain, what is happening down in the leg muscles is different. It comes down to the microscopic relationship between calcium and magnesium. Every muscle fiber in your body works through a sliding mechanism.
Calcium is the trigger that causes a muscle fiber to contract and lock together. Magnesium is the chemical key that allows it to relax and let go.
When you are deficient in magnesium, calcium floods the muscle fibers and they stay locked in a contracted, tense state. They constantly twitch or demand to be moved because they physically cannot untense.
Is that same calcium and magnesium imbalance what triggers the brutal tension headaches in the early weeks? Most people just reach for ibuprofen and suffer through it, but those headaches are heavily linked to mineral deficiency.
Yes, they are. The muscles in your neck and your shoulders and your scalp lock up from that exact same deficiency. They pull tight on the cranial fascia, creating a tight band of referred pain all the way around your head.
Low magnesium is a well-documented primary trigger for those specific tension headaches. So when we look at the fourth symptom, which is sleep quality, it is really a downstream effect of fixing the other three.
Because it is not a sedative, it will not force your eyes closed. But if your brain brake pedal is finally working and your legs are not twitching and your head is not throbbing, you have removed the physical roadblocks.
You are setting the baseline biological conditions required for falling asleep and staying under. When you address those four issues of anxiety and muscle tension and sleep disruption and tension headaches, you change the entire texture of the withdrawal experience.
It turns a nightmare into something you can actually manage day by day. Which brings us to the pharmacy aisle. This is where the entire process usually falls apart for people.
Someone taking magnesium and feeling nothing has not actually tested magnesium. They have tested the wrong compound. Let us talk about magnesium oxide and why it fails so spectacularly.
Magnesium oxide is essentially rust. It is the extremely cheap version that fills the drugstore shelves and those $50 detox bundles. It fails because of its chemical structure.
The magnesium is tightly bound to oxygen, making it highly stable. That stability is great for sitting on a warehouse shelf for 3 years. That means your stomach acid has a remarkably hard time breaking the bond.
Only around 4% of magnesium oxide is actually absorbed into the bloodstream. Think about that math. 96% of it just passes right through your digestive tract, completely intact.
You are literally just buying expensive urine. If you see oxide on the label, walk right past it. The gold standard for our purposes is magnesium glycinate.
In this form, the magnesium is bound to glycine. Glycine is an amino acid that has its own distinct calming properties on the brain. Glycinate is highly bioavailable, meaning your body easily absorbs it through the intestinal walls, and it is very gentle on the stomach.
Why does the glycine part make such a massive difference for sleep specifically? Is it just a better delivery vehicle?
It is much more than a delivery vehicle. Glycine actively crosses the blood-brain barrier on its own. It acts as an inhibitory neurotransmitter, and it causes vasodilation.
It widens the blood vessels at your extremities, which drops your core body temperature. A slight drop in core temperature is a strict physiological requirement for your brain to initiate sleep.
So you're getting the muscle relaxation of the magnesium plus the sleep-inducing mechanics of the glycine. Magnesium citrate is another solid option you will see everywhere. It is well absorbed and usually much easier to find in standard grocery stores.
Citrate is highly effective for muscle tension and withdrawal headaches. But I have to offer a very blunt warning on citrate. At higher doses, it rapidly loosens the bowels.
It is literally used as a medical laxative before surgical procedures. If you take too much of it, you will spend your night dealing with severe stomach cramps instead of sleeping. The digestive limit is entirely real.
Citrate pulls water into the intestines. If glycinate or citrate cause stomach issues for you, magnesium malate is the next best alternative. It is well absorbed and generally suits people whose digestive systems react badly to the other forms.
But assuming your stomach tolerates it, glycinate remains the absolute top tier for these specific withdrawal symptoms. Once you have the right chemical form in your hand, you have to navigate the total weight deception printed on the label.
The actual daily target for an adult is 200 to 400 milligrams of elemental magnesium. The word elemental is the deciding factor in everything we are discussing today.
It represents the actual amount of the pure mineral you are ingesting. This is completely separate from the amino acid or acid it is bound to.
Think of magnesium as a diva. It will not travel through your digestive tract alone.
Yeah.
It needs an escort. In magnesium glycinate, the glycine is the escort.
When supplement companies print a massive number, like 1,000 milligrams on the front of the bottle, they are printing the weight of the entire compound. It is the diva plus the very heavy escort. It is an optical illusion for your wallet.
The math on this is incredibly deceptive. A 500 milligram citrate capsule might contain only around 75 milligrams of elemental magnesium.
Someone looks at the front of the bottle and thinks they just took 500 milligrams. Then they wonder why their legs are still restless and they feel terrible. In reality, they took a tiny fraction of the therapeutic dose.
You have to look at you really need to check the nutrition facts panel on the back of the bottle to find the actual elemental yield. How should someone time this elemental dose once they finally figure out the math?
Timing depends entirely on your primary symptom. If your main struggle is insomnia and restless legs at night, take your full dose 30 to 60 minutes before bed. Give it time to absorb and drop that core body temperature.
If the anxiety is humming high all day from the moment you wake up, it is much better to split the dose. Take half in the morning to stabilize your baseline nervous system, and take the other half in the evening.
We have to anchor this entire strategy in the real timeline of recovery. There is a massive misconception about timelines online.
You will hear people on forums confidently claim that the first 72 hours are the worst and then you're fine. Or they say recovery is over after a week. That is entirely false.
The stretch where magnesium helps the most sits firmly in the release phase and the resilience phase of quitting. The release phase runs from day 1 to about day 5.
This is the acute physical clearing where your body is frantically trying to figure out where the external cannabinoids went, and it is dumping cortisol. The resilience phase starts around day 5 and runs for about 3 weeks.
This is where the physical symptoms slowly start to fade, but the emotional volatility and the sleep disruption really peak. Stabilization actually takes around 7 weeks with active support.
If you do not have support, or if you have a history of heavy long-term use, it can take up to 3 months to reach the clarity phase. The clarity phase usually sits roughly between week 3 and week 7.
Managing your expectations about when the supplement kicks in is crucial to staying the course. Nothing happens on the first night. You will not take glycinate on day 1 and wake up on day 2 feeling cured.
It takes time for cellular levels to physically rebuild. So what does the actual timeline of relief look like if someone takes the right elemental dose consistently?
Muscle tension and physical restlessness usually begin to noticeably ease within 3 to 5 days of consistent dosing. The actin and myosin filaments finally get enough magnesium to unlock.
Sleep improvements typically follow after roughly 5 to 7 days. That is when the body's GABA regulation starts to stabilize and those physical roadblocks are cleared.
The anxiety effect builds much more gradually. That usually takes 1 to 2 weeks of regular supplementation before the baseline hum of nervousness quiets down.
If someone is struggling heavily with sleep at the 2-week mark, can they stack magnesium with other things safely?
Magnesium combines perfectly with valerian root in the evening and with melatonin. Because they are not fighting for the same parking spot in the brain, they do completely different jobs.
They work through entirely different biological routes, which means they do not interfere with each other. Magnesium works on foundational nervous system regulation and muscle relaxation.
Valerian works directly on GABA receptor activity to promote active sleepiness. Melatonin simply dictates the timing of your brain sleep signals. There's no interaction problem between the three, and they cover different aspects of the severe sleep disruption you face in the resilience phase.
We need to state the honest limits here because transparency is the whole point of looking at the biology. Magnesium makes a relentlessly hard stretch of time measurably more bearable.
It softens the sharpest physical edges of the tension and takes the edge off the wired anxiety. But it does not make you quit. It is a biological support tool and not a solution to addiction.
It absolutely does not replace the behavioral work of learning how to live without cannabis. It does not teach you how to handle stress, and it does not stop psychological cravings when life gets hard.
When we look at all of this information together, it fundamentally shifts how we understand what the body is doing during withdrawal. The suffering is not random. It is a mechanical issue of supply and demand.
When you quit cannabis, the goal is not to find a new substance to force your body into submission. You are not trying to drug yourself out of withdrawal.
The ultimate goal is to give your nervous system the raw materials it needs to repair its own breaks. It is about removing the physiological friction. Your body already knows how to heal.
You just have to give it the baseline resources to do the heavy lifting. Magnesium is just a building block for that natural internal repair process.
It makes you wonder about our baseline health, too. Modern agriculture has stripped so much magnesium from our soil that a massive portion of the population is already chronically deficient.
Maybe quitting weed is just the magnifying glass that reveals how close to empty our nervous systems are running every single day. If you are ready to start, the free self-check at quit-smoking-weed.com is a good first step.